Welcome to Truth in Crime Case Files. Today, we delve into a harrowing case that rocked the small city of Packet, Rhode Island in the early spring of 1994. The tragic deaths of two adopted children, Brian and Alyssa Tedesco, uncover a sinister tale of betrayal, abuse, and murder within a family that was supposed to offer love and protection. This is the story of how the seemingly perfect family facade crumbled, revealing the true horror that lay within. What dark secrets did the Tedesco children's diary reveal about their adoptive parents? What critical piece of evidence turned the investigation towards Joey and Grace Devontes? Could the Tedesco children have been saved if their cries for help had been heard sooner? What drove the Devontes parents to commit such a heinous crime against their adopted children? In the quiet city of Packet, Rhode Island, the lives of two adopted siblings, Brian and Alyssa Tedesco, were tragically cut short at the ages of 15 and 16, respectively. These teenagers were navigating the complexities of high school life with determination and warmth, despite their difficult upbringing. After losing their biological parents to the ravages of alcoholism, the Tedesco children found what they hoped would be a stable home with Joey and Grace Devontes in 1988. Brian, a sophomore at William E. Tolman High School, was known for his fascination with mechanics and technology, a passion ignited by the advent of the personal computer and the burgeoning digital age. With the release of the Phenom microprocessor by Intel earlier that month, he dreamed of one day engineering his own contributions to the field. Alyssa, a junior, found solace and expression in literature, her compositions reflecting the grunge era's raw introspection, a cultural wave headlined by bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam. The siblings lived in a modest two-story home on the outskirts of Packet, a stone's throw from Slater Park, where they often studied beneath the budding branches of March's early spring. Alyssa's academic pursuits were punctuated by visits to the local Borders bookstore, where she would lose hours perusing the latest releases. Her dreams of becoming a writer were nurtured by the works of Maya Angelou, whose Phenomenal Woman resonated with her own aspirations. In the days leading up to their untimely deaths, the Tedesco siblings were seen collaborating on a history project. Their topic was the recent inauguration of Nelson Mandela as South Africa's first black president, an event that symbolized hope and change, concepts they held dear. Little did anyone know that as they were looking to the future, the very fabric of their present was about to be torn apart. On a somber morning in Packet, with the chill of March still lingering in the air, the community of Packet was shaken to its core. It was the 23rd of the month, a Wednesday, when the stillness of dawn was disrupted by a discovery that would leave an indelible mark on the town's history. The bodies of Brian and Alyssa Tedesco, two local high school students embraced by the community after their adoption 6 years prior, were found lifeless in the backyard of their family home, adjacent to a weathered garden shed that once symbolized suburban tranquility. Martha Henley, a retiree known for her morning walks and friendly exchanges with neighbors, was the one to stumble upon the scene. It was approximately 7:15 a.m., just as the first light filtered through the overcast sky, casting a pall over the Devontes residence. The Weather Channel had predicted a partly cloudy day, but the grim discovery cast a shadow far darker than any cloud could muster. Henley, initially drawn by the unusual silence emanating from the usually bustling household, found the siblings lying motionless. Her heart sank as she approached, the gravity of the situation dawning on her. With trembling hands, she reached for her Motorola flip phone, a device that now served as a lifeline in this critical moment. Dialing 911, she reported her harrowing find to the authorities with a voice fractured by shock. The operator who took the call would later describe Henley as distraught but coherent, a testament to her attempt at composure in the face of such a tragedy. Henley remained by the roadside, her gaze fixed on the house as if willing it to relinquish its dark secrets until the police arrived, sirens cutting through the morning stillness. The community of Packet, still sleepy from the recent daylight saving time change, would awaken to the news that their own, the Tedesco children, had met an inexplicable and tragic end. The Packet Police Department, with its resources already stretched thin in the wake of a recent spate of break-ins, responded with surprising swiftness to the call from Martha Henley. Within minutes of her trembling report, the first patrol car arrived at the scene, its blue and red lights piercing the morning fog that had settled over the Devontes residence. Detectives Peter Pacheco and Myra DaCosta, both veterans of the force, were dispatched to take the lead. Pacheco, a no-nonsense man with a reputation for his methodical approach, and DaCosta, known for her keen intuition and attention to detail, approached the scene with a practiced calm that belied the gravity of their task. The backyard, typically a scene of domesticity and play, was now cordoned off with the stark yellow tape of a crime scene. The grass, still wet with dew, was undisturbed except for the area around the shed where the bodies were found. There was no sign of a struggle, no blood to speak of, and the shed door hung open, suggesting a narrative that was anything but straightforward. Pacheco and DaCosta, along with the crime scene technicians, began their meticulous work. Donning latex gloves, a standard precaution since the days of the O.J. Simpson trial, the team collected any potential evidence. They dusted for fingerprints, a technique honed since its inception over a century ago, and carefully bagged items that seemed out of place. Each blade of grass, each speck of dirt, was potential evidence in a case that offered few clues. As the sun climbed higher, casting light on the grim tableau, the detective speculated on the absence of a murder weapon. Poison, asphyxiation, or another silent method seemed likely, but only the forthcoming autopsies would unveil the true cause of the Tedesco children's demise. The quiet neighborhood, usually abuzz with the sounds of morning routines and children waiting for school buses, stood still, a collective breath held as the reality of the tragedy began to sink in. In the immediate aftermath of the discovery, the focus turned to Joey and Grace Devontes, both 39, the adoptive parents whose care had been trusted with the welfare of Brian and Alyssa Tedesco. The couple had been fixtures in the community since their arrival in the late 1980s. Joey worked as a supervisor at a local manufacturing plant, and Grace part-time at the town's public library. Their outward appearance was one of a quintessential American family, often seen in their Dodge Caravan, ferrying the children to various school events or weekend excursions. Caravan, ferrying the children to various school events or weekend excursions to McCoy Stadium for a Paw Sox game, yet their seemingly idyllic life was now under intense scrutiny. The police, armed with a search warrant and a battery of questions, conducted separate interrogations. The Devontes, who had presented themselves as devoted parents, appeared stoic even as the detectives probed for inconsistencies in their accounts. Joey, with his closely cropped hair and factory-stained hands, spoke in a measured tone, while Grace, her librarian's demureness momentarily set aside, answered with a precision that bordered on rehearsed. Their dreams of a happy family were now juxtaposed against the stark backdrop of the investigation. The police, ever methodical, checked alibis and cross-referenced statements with known timelines. They were looking for a crack in the facade, a motive that could explain the inconceivable. The interrogation was painstaking, with Puckett detectives aware that the nation's eyes were momentarily turned to their small city following the recent media frenzy surrounding the Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan scandal. The Devontes maintained their composure throughout, neither anger nor tears marring their expressions. Yet the police were not easily swayed by outward appearances. They knew that behind the most ordinary facade could lie extraordinary secrets. The investigation's trajectory veered towards a new suspect, A.J. Stevens, a 17-year-old high school student with a history of antagonizing Brian Tedesco. A prominent figure on the school's football team, A.J. had the kind of imposing physique that made his presence felt both on the field and off it. His penchant for conflict was well documented, with several incidents of bullying noted in his school records. As the detectives dug into his background, they uncovered a trail of disciplinary actions and a reputation tarnished by aggression. A.J.'s dreams of collegiate athletics were at risk, a fact that heightened his resentment towards those he perceived as threats. Brian, with his quiet strength and academic focus, had stood up to A.J.'s domineering behavior, an act that may have sown the seeds of a violent retribution. On the day of the interrogation, the weather had taken a turn for the worse, mirroring the darkening mood of the investigation. The police approached A.J. with calculated intensity, probing for a crack in his tough exterior. They found him at his home, a modest two-story house adorned with a New England Patriots flag, a testament to his athletic aspirations. AJ's response to the questioning was a volatile mix of indignation and defiance. His alibi for the night in question was shaky, and his temper flared as the detectives pressed him for details. Despite the tension, there was a lack of concrete evidence to tie him to the crime, leaving the police to consider other motives and opportunities. The investigation continued, the police aware that the window to solve the case was narrowing. The public's attention was still fixed on the recent Academy Awards, where Schindler's List had swept the night, but in Puckett, the spotlight was on a much grimmer drama unfolding in their midst. The investigation took a pivotal turn on March 30, 1994, as a brisk wind heralded the close of a typically mercurial New England month. The Puckett Police Department, working diligently on the Tedesco case, received a call that would propel the case forward. A critical piece of evidence had been discovered, Alyssa Tedesco's diary, found by a janitor in the back of a locker at William E. Tolman High School. The pages within it potentially held the key to the unfathomable crime. Detective Myra DaCosta, with a reputation for her meticulous nature, was the first to peruse the diary's contents. As she flipped through the pages, the narrative of the Tedesco children's lives under the Devontes roof began to crystallize. Alyssa's words, penned with the earnestness of a teenager yearning for a better life, spoke of dreams unfulfilled in a reality marred by abuse and neglect. The diary entries, some written in the margins of pages advertising the latest blockbuster video releases, detailed a pattern of mistreatment that was both systematic and cruel. The children, according to Alyssa's writings, were subjected to harsh labor and fed sparingly, often only once a day, a stark contrast to the images of family harmony projected in the photos displayed on the mantel of the Devontes home. The discovery of the diary coincided with the airing of a poignant episode of ER, the new medical drama that had captivated the nation with its gritty portrayal of life and death. As viewers across Puckett tuned in, unbeknownst to them, a crucial breakthrough in the Tedesco case was unfolding. A real-life drama of even greater gravity was unfolding in their midst. The police, bolstered by this new evidence, intensified their scrutiny of the Devontes. The diary's revelations provided a possible motive for the crime, and Detective Dasta, with a renewed sense of urgency, coordinated with the forensic team to corroborate the harrowing account with physical evidence. As the last days of March faded, the case that had once seemed impenetrable began to reveal its dark heart. The truth hidden within the worn pages of a young girl's diary became the turning point in the Tedesco investigation. Pocket detectives, armed with insights from Alyssa's diary, pieced together the grim narrative that led to the identification of the murderers, Joey and Grace Devontes. The adoptive parents, both 39, who had once been perceived as the children's saviors, were now the prime architects of their demise. The Devontes, who had woven themselves into the fabric of the community, were unmasked as perpetrators of severe abuse. The diary entries juxtaposed with the couple's public persona painted a chilling dichotomy. While they drove a well-kept Ford Taurus to church on Sundays and hosted annual 4th of July barbecues, behind closed doors they subjected Brian and Alyssa to conditions akin to servitude. Joey, with his managerial position at a local factory, and Grace, a librarian known for her quiet demeanor, had adopted the Tedesco children amidst the promise of a loving home. Yet the reality, as Alyssa's words revealed, was one of control and cruelty. The children were often seen performing yard work well into the evening, long after the neighborhood kids had retreated indoors to catch the latest episode of Seinfeld. The motive behind the murders remained elusive, but detectives speculated that the children's plan to escape their abusive environment may have precipitated the act. The Devontes, when confronted with the diary's contents, displayed a chilling composure. Their arrest, executed with precision by the police, was met with a silence that spoke volumes. As Joey and Grace were taken into custody, their reaction was one of resignation. There was no dramatic outburst, no plea of innocence, only an eerie acceptance of their fate. The news of their arrest spread quickly, dominating local conversations and overshadowing the buzz of the newly released movie, The Paper, which depicted the fast-paced world of journalism. The Tedesco family, who had maintained a distant yet hopeful relationship with the children, were left to grapple with a mix of grief and disbelief. The community's trust had been shattered, and the sense of betrayal was palpable as residents struggled to reconcile the image of the Devontes with the heinous nature of their crimes. The trial of Joey and Grace Devonte for the murder of their adopted children, Brian and Alyssa Tedesco, captured the attention of Puckett residents and the wider public alike. The courtroom, typically a venue for the mundane transactions of justice, became the stage for a drama that rivaled the most compelling episodes of Law and Order, which were popular at the time. Prosecutor Frank Davis White, a seasoned attorney with a reputation for his unyielding pursuit of justice, presented the case against the Devontes with a blend of forensic evidence and emotional testimony. White, in his mid-40s and known for his sharp wit and meticulous preparation, painted a harrowing picture of life inside the Devonte household, using Alyssa's diary entries as a narrative backbone that left the jury visibly shaken. The defense was led by Richard Sloan, a silver-haired lawyer in his early 60s, whose calm demeanor and measured speech provided a stark contrast to the horrific nature of the allegations. Sloan, aware of the public sentiment against his clients, argued for a narrative of misunderstanding and misguided discipline, suggesting that the Devontes were overwhelmed by the challenges of raising troubled children. As the trial progressed, the emotional toll on the Tedesco family was evident. Relatives who remembered the children's early laughter before their adoption were now reduced to tears, mourning the loss of potential and the cruelty of the children's final days. The courtroom, often filled to capacity, became a space of collective mourning, the weight of the tragedy felt by all present. The verdict, when it came, was unanimous: guilty on all counts. The sentencing was swift, life without parole. The judge, citing the severity and premeditated nature of the crime, showed little leniency. Some in the community felt the punishment fit the crime, while others debated the complexities of justice in a case so fraught with emotion. The Devontes, upon hearing their fate, remained as stoic as they had been throughout the trial. Their lack of reaction was a final, unsettling coda to the proceedings. In the wake of the verdict, the Tedesco family found little solace. The sentence could not fill the void left by Brian and Alyssa's absence. The trial's conclusion coincided with the release of Soundgarden's Super Unknown, an album that captured the era's angst and search for meaning. In Puckett, the verdict's impact rippled through the community, leaving friends and family to grapple with the lingering question of whether true justice had been served. In the aftermath of the trial, the city of Puckett sought to find a new normal. The streets, once bustling with the innocent commotion of family life, now echoed with a somber tone. The Devontes' conviction had provided a legal closure, but the emotional scars remained deeply etched in the community's collective memory. But the emotional wounds inflicted upon the community and the Tedesco family lingered. Detective Myra Dasta, who had become the face of the investigation, took an early retirement from the force. She dedicated her time to advocating for foster care reform, often speaking at local events and writing op-eds in the Providence Journal. Her former partner, Peter Pacho, remained on the force, his resolve hardened by the case that had tested his limits both professionally and personally. Martha Henley, the neighbor who had discovered the bodies, moved to a nearby town. The quiet serenity of her morning walks was now replaced with a vigilant gaze, the memories of that fateful day never quite fading. She found solace in community gardening, a hobby that allowed her to nurture life in the face of the death she had encountered. A.J. Stevens, the high school bully once suspected of foul play, graduated and left Puckett, joining the military in an attempt to outrun his past. The Tedesco family, grappling with a grief that seemed insurmountable, established a memorial fund in Brian and Alyssa's names. The fund provided scholarships to foster children who, like the Tedesco siblings, dreamed of a future beyond their circumstances. It was a small comfort, a way to ensure that the children's legacy would be one of hope rather than despair. As the years passed, the Tedesco case became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the potential for darkness that can dwell behind closed doors. The community, once rocked by the revelation of the murders, slowly healed. The bonds between neighbors were fortified by a shared resolve to protect the innocent and prevent such tragedies from ever occurring again. Hey, truth in crime case solvers. Interested in more real-life murder mysteries? Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Do you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate? Leave us a comment. Until then, stay safe.